1, it says find EF in the following right triangle. So we're trying to find this side here. It is identified as a right triangle. You see the right angle marked. So once we establish right triangle, I want to establish leg-leg hypotenuse to use the Pythagorean theorem. So the legs are the two sides that create the right angle. The hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle. And the Pythagorean theorem states that if you take one leg squared plus the other leg squared, it equals the hypotenuse squared. So in this case, if I take EF and square it, and I take 7 and square it, that it should equal 10 squared. Okay. So when you write the Pythagorean theorem out, always write it out in that idea. It's, back when you first learned it as a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I much prefer leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. Make sure everything gets where it belongs. Personally, see I wrote EF squared there. I usually identify the side I don't know as X or Y or something like that. I just think it's easier instead of having EF squared in my work to have X squared in my work. It's just easier to look at. Feel free to write whichever you want. Do identify your answer as EF when you get the final answer, but if you want to call it X while we're going through, that's fine. So that's the Pythagorean theorem usage. So again, if I see a right triangle and I know 2 of the 3 sides, Pythagorean theorem can be used to find the 3rd side. So that gives me X squared plus 49 equals 100. And then at this point, since I've squared everything, I want X squared by itself, so I'm going to move the 49 over to the other side. So X squared equals 51. So X is going to equal the square root of 51.
7.14.
7.14 you said? Take your word for it. All right, so depending on what the book asks for in an answer, I did with the homework look, and sometimes it asks for just find the missing side. Sometimes it says find the exact value of the side. If it says the approximate value of the side. If it asks for the exact value is the square root of 51. The 7.14 is the approximate value. If it asks you to round to a specific decimal place, like round to the nearest tenth, nearest hundred, nearest thousand, make sure you do round it correctly if they do ask for an approximate value. But that would be the answer. So if I was writing this answer out, I'd write EF equals, let's go 7.14. In general, if you see any right triangle, you have 2 sides known and 1 side missing, you're trying to find the missing side. Apply the Pythagorean theorem and solve. Sometimes you have to move and subtract. Sometimes numbers are the same size, so you have to add, but there's always going to be letter squared equals number at some point. So you're going to square root both sides to get the answer. That's pretty much how those work.